Hello, friends, and happy Tuesday. I'm so glad you're here tuning in to the Share Your Story podcast. I'm your host, Ellie B, and I can't wait for you to hear part 2 of my conversation with my sweet friend, Katie. If you haven't listened to part 1, I really encourage you to go back and learn about how we became friends and about Katie's journey to meeting her husband, Bradley. In today's episode, Katie shares the story of becoming a realtor after serving various nursing roles. She also shares so much insight and wisdom into how she raises her 2 sons alongside her husband, and she also talks about recentering her life around her top priorities. Katie is the perfect example of examining your own heart, asking for grace in the process, and ultimately loving God so you can love others well. Without further delay, here's part 2 of my conversation with Katie Williams. Yeah. Okay. So once you had moved back to Jacksonville, because I think this is such a cool part of your story, you ultimately did not stay in nursing.
No.
So walk me back to that.
Okay. So while we were engaged, we bought a house in Avondale, and actually, cool point in this, just to throw it in there, Bradley, something that was so honoring to me in terms of being engaged is, of course, when you're a single girl, like your car's broken, you call your dad. Something's going on in your house, you call your dad. So like that's who I wanted to go to. And Bradley had his parents and he was going to them. And so now we're buying a house. We're not married. We're just engaged. We're trying to figure this out. And I'm going to my dad for advice. He's going to his dad for advice. And we're trying to figure things out. And such an honoring thing that Bradley did is he went to my dad and asked for advice.
Wow.
Right?
Oh,
I know.
Bradley.
He's a gem. He's a gem. Anyways, I had to throw that story in there because it kind of came up. But so anyways, bought a house. And Bradley at the time was working for Chick-fil-A at the town center in management there. And he was like, I cannot do Christian chicken forever. And just trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? What are options? He was brainstorming and his dad had the idea, why don't you look into being a home inspector?
Mm-hmm.
Bradley had a little background in some carpentry and electrical work, and loves to work with his hands, like not a desk guy. Could be if he needed to be, but not a desk guy.
Right.
And so he looked into that and he got into home inspections, started his own business. And in the meantime, I was still working at Wolfson's. I had actually been admitted into JU's master's program for one of their master's degrees in nursing. And I was helping teach some classes at the hospital and had people pouring into me and encouraging me to kind of pursue that and go down that route of like kind of administration and education and kind of working my way up, if you will, in the hospital. And I had a dream nursing job, was paid too much to do what I was doing, loved it. And then with budget cuts, that job got cut. And I was told I either am taking a huge pay cut or I would need to go to night shift. And I was wanting to start a family at that point. So switched to a desk nursing job where I was looking for insurance fraud. And that was it. I mean, it was interesting and it was fun, but it had great flexibility in terms of hours. And eventually I could potentially work from home. So it was great for the season. And I had just started that job. And Bradley decided to get his real estate license.
Yep.
And did that so that he could be a part of a brokerage and, sell a house here or there if he wanted to, but really just to plug into a brokerage in order to market himself as a home inspector. And when he did that, I got really jealous. I was like, wait a minute. I would love to have my real estate license, but silly me. I can't do that. I'm a nurse. And Bradley just encouraged me and he said, well, why don't you just get it? And if you use it, great. And if you don't, okay, no big deal.
Right.
So I did it and got my license, worked for a year doing real estate and that nursing job. I was able to like leave the office to go show a house and come back. Like it was just cool the way it was all set up. So I was doing both. And then when I had my first son, Bradley, I, at that point, was like, okay, I cannot do both and be a mom. I've got to figure this out. I've got to choose. And real estate won out big time.
Yeah.
I loved it. I still love it. And it offered flexibility. And now flexibility in terms of being a realtor is an interesting concept.
It is.
You're on call all the time, but you can say no.
Yeah.
So that's been fun to figure out. But anyway, so ended up, choosing real estate, and it's been 6.5 years of real estate now. I know.
Yeah. And I think there's just such beauty in the fact that nursing feels like something you would lock yourself into because you've put in so many hours and so much education and whatever, but you felt the leading and the call, and now your life is so fulfilled in such a different way.
Yes.
And some of the muscles that you flex are the same in that you're serving people and you're helping people and you're bringing relief, because honestly, home buying, selling, all of the above is so stressful. And similar to a nurse, like a nurse is that calming presence that gives you the in between the information and the care that you're really looking for. And I think that's the same of what you do. You serve people really well in a very chaotic and stressful time.
Yes, it can definitely be chaotic. But yeah, you're 100% right. It satisfied the same things in me of caring for people, educating, leading and guiding. And that's what I always loved about nursing, was just loving on the people. And so now it's just a different avenue. And I keep my nursing license, in case there's a major housing crash.
Yes.
I can always get a job as a nurse.
Yes. And I love to text you random questions about like what's going on with me.
Yes.
Help.
Yes, I know. And I since I've been like out of it for so long, sometimes I'm like, this is what I think. Hold on, let me Google it real quick. Let me make sure I'm on the right page here before I give any advice.
Does it help you with the boys? Like, do you feel
gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something Bradley and I have talked a lot about, is there's things that if I did not have the nursing background, actually, if I didn't have a pediatric nursing background, that would have made me so anxious as a new mom. We would have been to the ER a few times, strictly just more out of my own fear, than anything else. But having the knowledge of knowing like, okay, well, if we were in the hospital, there's nothing that they could do for them with this either. It would just be monitoring, and I might not have the machines that can monitor him as well, but I can look at him and I can monitor him, and I can know like if he gets worse, then I got to take him. But yes, it has been very helpful.
I hope you know, I'm going to be calling you out the wazoo because I'm going to need that kind of comfort and guidance.
Oh gosh. Every mom needs someone that they can call, even if it's just a friend who has had kids before them and that knows, because that mom anxiety is real.
Yeah, very real. Okay, let's talk about your boys. You're also two cutie redheads. When you thought you were going to be the sole redhead, and
now I have
Charlie, your dog, really is also kind of a redhead. He's more of like a strawberry blonde.
Yeah,
but he has some tint to him.
Yes, you can see us coming a mile away. We'll put it that way. Everybody knows us. Yep. So 2 boys, Bradley and Hunter. Bradley is 5 and Hunter is 3, and they are a mess. They're so fun. They're a mess.
But you are one of 2 sisters, as am I. So now you're in a house full of boys.
Yes.
Tell me about did you want 2 girls? Did you want 2 boys? Like what was
Okay. So I did not care with the first one, which I think most people would pretty much say.
Right, you're excited about having a baby.
Excited, yes. And then, so had the boy, and of course, then when you're having your second, you're like, oh, well, of course I would like one of each, like, because I want to experience both. But then when I found out Hunter was a boy, there was this initial moment of sadness. And this is something I want any pregnant mom or someone who eventually will have children just to know. Somebody gave me this advice, and it was freeing, that it is okay to be sad when you find out the gender of your baby, because you have 2 dreams in mind before you know, the dream of a son and the dream of a daughter. And one of those dreams dies when you find out. And
Oh
that
my gosh, I just
felt
got chills. That's so
right?
beautiful. Yes.
When someone told me that, it felt like a gift, and I was like, "Okay, I can grieve the fact that this baby is not a daughter, and at the same time, I can be excited about the fact that I
Yeah.
get to have another son."
Mm,
Um, so then I was like, "All right, we're doing this. I am boy mom."
yes.
And Bradley is one of 4, but has 3 sisters, so
Yeah.
he never had a brother. So it has been fun. Wrestling happens on a regular basis, and at first as a mom, you feel like you're supposed to break that up, and now as a mom, I'm like, "You know what? Someone's gonna get hurt eventually. Survival of the fittest. Let's see what happens." You
I don't
literally
have the energy for it, so you 2
No!
might as
I
well have it
can't
with each other.
intervene. Yeah, so they're just fun, and there is something so precious and so sweet about a boy and his mom, like,
Yeah.
little Hunter, holy smokes, he all the time is like, "Mom, can I tell you a secret?" And every time it's, "I love your heart." I lean over and he says, "I love your heart,"
Oh,
or, "You're beautiful." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
sweet.
It is the sweetest thing. Funny story, we were going through Publix and he wanted one of those Kinder Egg things. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about? And never do I ever go, "Yes, honey, yes." You know,
Yeah.
I'm always, "No, no, no, no." But for whatever reason, this one time, I was like, "Yes, you can have it." And I gave it to him, and we went around the corner, and he goes, "Oh, mommy, you're so beautiful. I love you so much." And this stranger lady, she turns to me, she was like, "Oh my gosh, how sweet." I was like, "Well, what you didn't see is that I literally just gave him what he wanted." So, you know, he's smart about it. He's real smart about it, but
They are so precious and fun. But I've loved watching the way, because again, as a person who's not married and doesn't have kids, I feel like I love to be a sponge of information. I just love to take in and
Mhm.
observe. I've always kind of been that way. And you have been one of the greatest examples of how to parent really intentionally.
Mm.
What do you feel like motivated that, or why? Why is that important to
Yeah.
you?
Right now, Bradley and I are the loudest voices in their life and need
Mm,
to be the loudest
right.
voices in their life. And I think just the world that we're in can be really tough and really cruel. And I think we feel that as adults. So just thinking of your children growing up in that, I want them to be prepared. I want them to know truth. I want them to be little sponges. And so I need to constantly be speaking truth into their lives and knowing who Jesus is. And, you know, just as simple as Bradley, who's afraid of the dark. We sing Veggie Tales, God is bigger than the boogeyman. I hope that's ringing some bells.
I love the
Um,
VeggieTales.
yes. So even just the truth in that, or like this morning, I was telling the boys, hey, you know, God says we can be strong and courageous. And do you know why? It's not because of us, it's because He is always with us. And
Mm.
because He's always with us, we can be strong and courageous. And just throwing out little things like that. Bradley's parents gave us these books, the Adam Raccoon series, highly recommend. And they're just teaching little parables. And like one is
Oh,
about Bully Garumph, and he's this big mean bear and trips little Adam Raccoon. And it's just not nice. But then it's all about loving your enemies. And they're
oh,
just trying to plant those seeds. And I think it was at 11:22, Dr. Mac Brunson, in one of
yeah.
his sermons, he was like, you know, the truths that you're implanting now, whether or not you see them act on that in this moment, like they're going to stay with them.
Mm,
And it could be later on in life that they think about those truths.
right.
And so just trying to plant those seeds now. Hunter loves the story of David and Goliath.
Oh,
And he one day I was putting him to bed and he goes, "Mommy, can I give Jesus a gift?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, of course you could give Jesus a gift. Like, what would you want to give him?" And his response was a gun so he can shoot Goliath in the butt. Like, let's talk about my discipling, folks. I was like, "What in the world? Where have I gone wrong?" But
n
okay.
no, he's just a
Um,
boy.
he is just a boy. But so just the little innocence like that, or like Bradley asked me one time, he was like, you know, "Mommy, why would God create the bad guys?" And
Oh,
questions like that I mean, you're not prepared for coming
right.
from a little kid, but you know, just having to think through that and knowing where do we stand? Who do we want surrounding our kids? And speaking truth into their lives. And also, a big thing that has been humbling for me is admitting my faults to my small children. Like not too long ago, I think maybe it was when Bradley and Bradley were out of town because it was just Hunter and me. But I was trying to get Hunter out the door for church. Anyone who knows about getting a kid out the door, Lord help us all.
I can barely get myself out the door, so
gosh, it is like any meme you've ever seen. It's true. It's all true. So I'm trying to get him out the door. I put him in these pants. He starts whining about the pants. They're too crunchy. And was legitimately mad at me and didn't want these pants. And, we're already kind of running late. And so I was getting frustrated with him and like being mean, honestly, to him. And ultimately, like almost shaming him and being like, you're wearing these pants. We're running late. Yeah. I'm not changing your pants because if we do, you're going to make us late, like saying mean things. And he started crying and I just sat there and it was like God hit me over the head and was like, what are you doing? And I got down on his level and I looked at him and I was like, Hunter, buddy, we are running late because mommy started getting us ready too late. We're not running late because you don't want to wear crunchy pants. Like it is not your fault. I am so sorry for yelling and losing my temper. And trying to set that precedence now of like grace for everyone, asking my children for forgiveness because that between my boys and my husband, they see the real me on a regular basis and they see me lose my temper. And so just trying to foster that in them from such an early age and also not to build shame in my 3-year-old thinking he's the reason we're all late for church. He's not. I am. And so, again, humbling.
No kidding. But it's also, you model that really well, which is just to say, like, I think it's really easy in anyone's life, but I think probably especially as a mom with young kids to be only in the moment because like there's just so much to be attended to. Yes. You taught me one of the greatest things about reading about people constantly hanging on Jesus and like reaching for his cloak and constantly touching him. And you were like, I realized that Jesus relates to me even in this phase as a mom because they always need me. They always need to be touching me. And it was so this tender place of like, they need me so badly. And Jesus gets that too, because he was needed all the time and he was touched and and oh my gosh, that just spoke to me like just so beautifully. But I think it's really easy to get, or to keep full focus on what's currently happening because so many things are being asked of you or needed from you. Yep. And I think you model really well, who do I want my boys to be when they're in a situation that is, in the future where they need courage, where they need to be understanding what it's like to love people who are the bullies, that kind of thing. And even being able to say, like, I don't want him to feel shame in the future because this is who I am. I mean, that requires a lot of surrender.
Daily. And I think it shows up whether I have surrendered that day or not to my family. And the people that we love the most and that we're closest to are the people who take the brunt of, I feel like, our sin and our baggage and what we're dealing with and working with. And
right. And that's so interesting because these days it's so easy to create perception or a public appearance that like you could post all day long about like what the kind of parent you want to be or the kind of mom or wife or whatever.
Yep.
But it's actually the people closest to you that know the depths of how you're walking it out. And so like almost that same concept of like that audience of one, like we're really only serving the Lord. It's also like serving the people that are right there in front of you is actually more important than what the masses think of you.
Yes. And knowing I want Bradley and the boys to know that they are the most important thing to me.
Right. You do that a lot in I think I've seen you go through seasons of like wrestling with that is my most important priority. So how do I restructure my life? How do I
Mhm.
restructure work, or how do I restructure how I communicate? Can you like what brings that on? Like is it
Yeah.
tension? Is it and it feels like a lot of work to try to constantly readjust, reorganize.
Oh, yeah. Um, it definitely so with real estate, there's a lot of being kind of on demand, especially the market that we saw in 2020 and 2021. It was like a house has hit the market. You better go, you better see, you better sell your soul on your offer.
Yep.
And so, in loving real estate and loving what I'm doing and wanting to help people and wanting to do that well, there was such this pull of, okay, if a house hits the market and we got to go that night, we got to go. And either at the time, the boys were so much younger. Now it's easier to take them along for a showing. But it was very difficult to try to take them. And I also was a little bit newer and trying to build my reputation and
Sphere, as they call it.
sphere. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Um, so there was just this constant battle in me of I want to do well in my work and I want to do it to the best of my ability, but I do not want it to be at the detriment of my family, but sometimes it feels like it is.
Mhm.
And even if I was able to like have my parents watch the boys, or my aunt and uncle have been really helpful in watching the boys, or even my sister, and sometimes like I could like even just the stress of figuring out childcare,
Yeah.
because at night and weekend and on nights and weekends is when people want to see. And then also being present with my family. And Bradley has had really long days at work and comes home
Right,
and wants to
because
be with us
y'all
as a
are
family.
technically in the same field and he's
Yes.
having that much more demand just
Yes.
as you are. Yeah.
Right. And there was this prideful part of me that was like, you've been able to go and work all day long. Now I should be able to get to go and show these houses. And in and of itself, that's not necessarily a wrong
Mm,
statement, but what's my heart there? And
yeah.
my heart needs to be, no, I want to be with my family. I want to spend time with my family. So there has just been like, I looked back the other day through some of my old journals, and it truly has been almost like a 2-year
Mm,
battle, like looking through, like, Lord, I feel like you're calling me with real estate. Like, I don't feel like there's this call to completely quit. And, you know, I have the flexibility to pick and choose who I want to work with and when. And so I need to
and
utilize that. But how do you turn people down if they want to work with you? And
even just the income to support your family also, like,
yeah,
that's bringing something in. Yeah.
yes. Um, and kind of the satisfaction that I have in doing it
Right.
too. And so just that whole battle, but then at the end of the day, it just kept coming back to like, I knew if you read my journals 2 years ago, I knew what God was calling me to do, and I was too
Mm,
stubborn to do it. Bradley had made it very clear that the way I was operating was not healthy for me and was not healthy for our family. But my
yeah.
pride was getting in the way of, I can handle this. I can
Yeah.
do this. I want to do this. So I'm going to make it happen and I'm going to do
Mm,
it. But I'm still going to be present and I'm going to wear every hat. And,
mm.
that does not work. There's no such thing as balance. The scales are always tipping one
Yeah.
way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's to the detriment of one or the other. So last summer, I, I mean, I knew for 2 years, but last summer there again, it was kind of that gnawing
Mm,
feeling. There was just this overwhelming sense that God was saying, "Pump the brakes.
mm.
You have to slow down. Something's got to give, and it's not your family, and it's not your health, and it's not your time with me, it's your work." And in real estate, when you pump the brakes, it's things stop.
Yep.
And so I was real worried and nervous about that, but also knowing like God's got me in this. And if he's calling me to do
Right.
this, then that's what he's calling me to do. So I talked with Bradley and he was in full support. And I just decided, okay, I'm not stopping, but I'm not pursuing business actively. Like if somebody comes to me, great, but I'm not going to try to market myself. I'm not trying to win new business. And so from, let's see, October until April, I had one transaction, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard, but I knew that's where I was supposed to be. And what a blessing it was. The amount of growth that has happened in me in this past year, and especially during that time, is invaluable. And um, I I started just thinking and mulling over, okay, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. All right, that's what I got to do. Your heart is the seat of your emotions.
Yeah.
And, you know, my soul longing for the Lord, wanting to know. A big thing that I really learned was Sabbath and rest and season of rest. And what does that look like? And how is that restorative to your soul? And pursuing that, and also pursuing, okay, there's God the Father. I want to know God the Father as God the Father. There's God the Son. I want to know him as the Son. And there's the Holy Spirit, and I want to know him. They're three persons all in one, and I want to know all three. And
Yeah.
pursuing that and growing in that, figuring out the balance and rhythm of putting my kids very much first, and my husband first, and then my kids, and not being anxious and stressed out and angry and short fused. If my phone rang, not feeling like I need to answer it. And because without fail, if I talk on my phone and my kids are around, they're pawing at me. They're
Yes.
screaming, they need something, and I would just get angry and frustrated, and it was terrible. But being like, okay, I don't have to answer this phone call right now. I can answer this phone call when my kids are in school tomorrow. And if that's going to be an issue for this person, then they're not the person I'm supposed to work with. And
Yeah.
just figuring out those boundaries and priorities. And so then in the spring, that was when I truly felt like the Lord was like, okay, we've taken this time and we have molded and we have shapened, and you have learned a lot. Now take what you've learned and run with it and go.
Yeah.
And I am still not perfect at this, but I feel like I have been able to take those tools and apply them better. And I think my marriage is better because of it. I think my family runs better because of it. And I mean, it's just getting your priorities straight and knowing that's what God's calling me to first and foremost.
Right.
And then I can do my work that he's called me to do as well. So it's, again, I don't have it perfectly figured out by any stretch of the imagination. It ebbs and flows, but has truly been such a huge learning year for me.
Right. And I think prioritizing is the best way and prioritizing is first a decision, and then it comes through in your actions. And a lot of times with the actions, I feel like it, for me, can be such a work backwards. Where do I want to go? And what are the steps I need to take to get there? We love John Mark Comer a lot. And he always says, like, you're not going to become the person you want to be at 80.
Yes.
Like, you're making the choices and decisions now. So being that you want to prioritize your family over your work and trusting that the Lord will provide the work where you need it. And he's so kind to give us the time that even though he's been telling you this, it's almost like giving hints towards like, this is where we're going.
Oh, yeah.
And here's an invitation to get in to where I'm calling you to. I also think, gosh, what you said about like breaking down, knowing God, knowing the Father, knowing the Holy Spirit. I have been so convicted, but also, again, I feel like he's given me that place of invitation of recognizing I don't want to, like, because of Jesus's death and resurrection, I know I'll be in heaven reunited one day, but also knowing that is just not the end goal, that my priority is not like, oh yeah, I'll get there one day. Like, I want to know him here.
Yes.
And I've been so convicted of like, I will not have the relationship with him now, which is the reading the word, worshiping through worship music, or like following those thread lines, similar to what you're saying about like writing down December 14th, I'm not dating until then. And then you went on your first date with Bradley. Like details like that only have impact when you're paying attention and when you want to follow him, because those things can occur for sure. But unless you're paying attention to them and making note of them, we miss them. And there's so much that I've been so convicted of recently of like the relationship I have with God now, I won't have with him in heaven because I'll see him. Like,
ooh, I haven't thought about that.
He'll be right in front of me. I won't have to know what it's like to trust him when I can't see him, when I don't know what he's doing in the larger picture. Like right here, right now, the obedience I have to him in reading the word and worshiping and confession and Sabbath and all these practices, like I won't have to know him that way then.
Right.
So this is my one opportunity now. And so you even breaking down the like, how do I know God? How do I know Jesus? How do I know the Holy Spirit? How do I love him with my soul, mind, body, strength? Those are such encouragements to me of like even breaking them down into those smaller buckets, because we do that with life, with how's my work going? How is my workout regimen going? Or like my health? We break it into these buckets, but even digging deeper.
Yep.
And I feel like that has been one of the encouragements, as you and I both, I feel like that's one of God's kindness in our friendship, is we go through things at a similar time.
Yep.
And we can go like 2 months without sitting in front of each other. Then we sit down and we're like, yes, I just went through this similar situation. And it looks completely different because our lives are very different. But we'll sit with each other and be like, he was teaching me the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's such a gift that he affirms in someone else. Like, yep, I'm teaching her the same thing, or I'm encouraging her. And I feel like that place of rest and how do you really know me has been something that both of us have walked through.
Oh yeah. I mean, rest was one of the biggest and hardest lessons I've had to learn. Like I'm very motivated. I want to do things and I want to do them well, but I'm not this like, I'm going to run so hard after this goal. Like that's not my personality. That's my husband's personality.
Yes.
But I was just saying yes to too many things is where I struggle, and trying to please everyone when that's not what I'm called to do. And I had
and you won't.
And
it's
I
not
won't, never.
Like we're just not capable. Yeah.
Like talk about an impossible goal.
Right.
But I was to the point where physically I was unhealthy, like living on caffeine, and just was not healthy, like not sleeping great, just not taking care of myself in any way. And I hate the whole like self-care, whatever, but it was more about I am not physically in a place where I can love well, where I can give of myself. And so learning all about rest and what that looks like, and your rest is in the Lord, and like not the busyness of this world, not chasing the success, not giving into just the busyness of, I mean, like even just in where I'm involved, like the whole girl boss vibe thing, like girl power, girl boss, like no, to hell with the hustle. Like, that's not what it's all about. That is so unfulfilling. And it's more about taking a step back and being loved by the Father just because I am created by him and in his image. And, Instagram is the worst. I love it, but it's the worst. And so just not getting caught up in constantly like scrolling and comparing, and it basically like not adding things to my life to try to be better, taking things away from my life to try to grow. Because I think we are in a society where it's just, oh, this isn't working, try this. Oh, do this. And it's like, no, it actually needs to be, oh, your life's falling apart. Like, let's take some of these things away. And a big thing that I've learned through John Mark Comer, talking about like active spiritual formation and passive spiritual formation. And those sound like really big, crazy words, but the active is the spiritual disciplines of rest and Sabbath, of reading your Bible, of worship, of prayer, of being surrounded by people that can speak truth into you. And those are formative things. And those are how we can prepare ourselves to react to what life brings our way. And then the passive spiritual formation is what life brings your way is going to form you.
Yeah.
So whether it's the death of a loved one and that tragedy, whether it's being single and living through that when you want something different, whether it's going through marriage and hardships and fights through marriage, whether it's having kids that humble you like nothing else, those are things that it's passive because it's happening to you. But you have to have the spiritual disciplines and the active formation in order to handle and to see God in those things and to know how to respond.
Yeah.
And so that's literally been the past year of my life, is trying to figure that out.
Yeah. No, and I think that's one of those, like, you constantly have to be like filling the gas in your car if you're going to continue to use it and go somewhere. Like you can't just expect it for it to run all the time. And then there's still tune-ups. There's like, you have to get your oil change or change your tires or whatever for longer journeys or the longer you use it or whatever. Because the second you hit the bump, you're going to want to make sure you don't have the flat tire as you go across it. This is probably not the best of, I'm not a car expert. Like, I don't know why this was my illustration.
It makes sense.
Let's hope.
I mean, my check engine light goes on a lot.
Yeah, no, I can't even go into my car troubles that I've had this year. But it's like, it's a similar thing because I mean, John Mark Comer, he's such a gift when it comes to teaching. But yeah, you can't, there are those situations that will form you regardless, but where is the fuel tank you're pulling from? And you're in a place of filling the tank with like, this is the practices like the Sabbath or praying or fasting or reading your Bible, all of that. And here's the posture I have towards like, here's who I trust. This is how I'm going to worship. This is what I'm going to continue to surrender to. And it's in that filling of the tank that as life comes at you, it's pulling from something.
Well, and that is what allows you to see the Lord working and hearing his voice. And, you know, if I'm not seeking his voice, I'm probably not going to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible says if we draw near to him, he draws near to us.
Draw near to us. Yeah.
So, and I love that. And just thinking of like, okay, if I can go months and not necessarily like hear from the Lord or like feel, I don't even know the words I'm trying to say, but you know, like you can kind of just coast.
Yeah.
And manage, and it's all right. And it's not like I don't believe at that point or whatever, but when I have just seen, like when I am praying to see things and praying to hear from the Lord, like he shows up and he does it and I can recognize it and I can see what's going on. And it's like going from black and white to color. Like life is just 3D almost, you know,
vibrant.
Like vibrant. And I can see what God is doing through situations. And I don't know, it's been a journey and it's been cool. And of course we're still going, you know, still learning. But it's been really neat.
Yeah. That's the beauty of a walk and a relationship. Relationships don't happen, hopefully. Well, I mean, we know dating relationships do, but most relationships, you don't go into it thinking there's an end point. So similar thing, like it's always a walk. It's always a journey.
So true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Katie, what would you say is the one word you would use to describe the current chapter of your story?
Okay. So I actually, a couple weeks ago, just in prayer, the Lord gave me the word continue, which I felt was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, in hearing that and thinking on it, I was like, okay, it's not persevere because of who I am. If it was persevere, it'd be like, what do I need to do? What do I need to push through? What do I need to how does it fall on me? But in continuing, it's like just being and moving forward. And when in the same prayer time that he gave me the word continue, I was given this beautiful picture of me walking through kind of like a canyon, like flat ground. Jesus is on my right, holding my hand. The sun is either rising or setting, whatever you will, just beautiful. And like mountains on either side. And just, walking forward. And so I started praying through that picture. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty picture. Like that's a beautiful like vision that was brought to mind. But then actually like praying over it and being like, okay, what does that mean? And I was given the word continue. And then I also heard the Lord say Psalm 121. And so I looked that up. And the passage said, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. He will not allow your foot to slip. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The Lord will protect you from all evil. He will keep your soul. Right.
Yes.
Right. And so that is just kind of where I've settled in right now, is that, kind of, okay, continue. What have you learned? Continue growing. God's got me. Mountains on either side, but we're walking, and he's there. He's protecting me.
There is something so beautiful to that too, because I think a lot of times we operate in the dramatics. Like I'm either in like a really happy, really good place, or I'm going to be prepared for a really intense, really bad place. And there is beauty to the fact that he's like, nope, keep going. We're going to stay right here, but we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep moving. Gosh, that is so affirming.
Yeah.
And such a beautiful picture.
That's cool.
Well, I just love you so much.
I love you.
I am
and
so thankful.
I just have to say, I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Talking about being obedient and pushing through something that could be hard and fearful. You doing this podcast is incredible and a blessing to so many people. And I know it will continue to be. And I know that the Lord has called you to do this. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
Yeah.
And it's just exciting to feel like I'm on the front row watching what's going on.
Truly, it's been such a gift, these years of friendship. It's one of the ways that I know the Lord is most evident in my life is the people that he constantly surrounds me with. And I think in these places, there have been so many pivotal moments over the last few years that I've just been like, Katie, what do I do? And we've walked so much of it together, and I'm just so grateful. And this is one of them.
Thankful for your friendship.
Yes. Okay, so where can people follow you, or if they're in the Jacksonville area?
Oh, you know what's embarrassing? What's my Instagram handle?
I feel like
it's the letter K, the letter D _Williams.
I feel like that's right.
Right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. Yes. And it's all things you'll see the redheaded family.
Yes.
You'll see encouragement, real estate, all the above. Yes. Remember that time where we were like, you were like, should I separate them? Should I keep them the same? Yes. That was a big discussion. That was a big discussion. Let's pray over it, whatever. Yes. So at KT_Williams on Instagram, we'll link to like root stuff and all the above. And just thank you for being an encouragement to me and to so many.
I love it.
I love you.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's have a cookie.
Yes. Don't
we burned it. We did, in fact, enjoy those cookies, homemade ones at that Katie brought over. And then we also continued to chat for probably another hour after recording this episode. Katie is such a precious gem of a person and friend. She shows me what it's like to desire growth and change, not just to feel better, but to serve God and her people better. I am so thankful for those years of working together and for her continued deep friendship. We have the most fun and can talk in depth on just about any subject, and I just love her so dearly. Please make sure you follow Katie on Instagram at Katie Williams for encouragement and valuable information on buying, selling, or investing. She's also an incredible resource, and you'll love seeing pictures of her sweet redheaded family. I'd also love if you'd follow me and the show on Instagram and thank Katie in the comments for being on the show. Please also rate and review this show wherever you're listening. It really helps get this podcast in front of new listeners. And a little housekeeping announcement, there will not be a show this Thursday the 21st or Tuesday the 26th in order to honor the celebration of Christmas. But please meet me back here on December 28th for a really fun episode as me and my best friends review our favorite stories from this past year. I cannot wait to talk to you then. Merry Christmas, everyone.